Hello, we're brothers Joe and Sam from textileartist.org, and starting on Monday, we'll be bringing you the textileartist.org Stitch Camp. By this time next week, you'll have made your very own unique piece of mixed media art using fabrics, threads, paints, and some unique and easy to find mark making tools.
And leading Stitch Camp is the incredible textile artist Gwen Headley, who has enjoyed international acclaim as the author of the best-selling book Drawn to Stitch.
I'm Gwen Headley, and I'm delighted to be sharing this textileartist.org workshop with you. Firstly, you'll mark cloth simply and in your own individual way. You'll then be freely piecing and patching small areas of those cloths together, using simple stitches to merge and blend the patches together, making visual links and leading the eye from one to another. You'll be encouraged to think creatively and boldly, and to see your stitching as drawing with thread. After all, stitch is mark. Every day next week, I'll take you through a different stage of this exciting way of working freely. It's broken down into really manageable chunks, so even if you can only make a commitment of 20 to 30 minutes a day from Monday to Friday next week, you can easily get involved to explore marking, stitching and making in a relaxed and creative way.
And if you do get involved, you'll be arming yourself with some powerful creative strategies that you can take way beyond Stitch Camp to help you develop your own fulfilling and inspiring creative practice. So if you've ever told yourself, I'll do it one day when I have the time, this is your chance.
In anticipation of making those first marks, we're going to hand you back over to Gwen in a moment to talk you through the fabrics, threads, paints and mark making tools you'll need.
But first, a word of warning. Maybe you felt inspired to start a project before, but you didn't have all the things that you needed. It can be tempting not to start anything until you have exactly what's in the recipe. After all, if you don't have the ingredients, what's the point in trying? Textile artist and creativity expert Jane Dunwald used to feel the same way. She told us there was always one more elusive something she needed before she could begin. But she came to realise that that's not a mindset conducive to actually producing art. Being too picky about tools and materials can be a sign that procrastination and perfectionism are rearing their heads to stamp all over an opportunity to be creative. After all, isn't making something better than making nothing at all?
Here's Gwen with some great ideas for being resourceful in your hunt for tools and materials and getting inventive with what you already have available in your house or garden.
And by the way, everything Gwen mentions is listed in a handy tools and materials list that you can download by clicking the link underneath this video.
Let's look at what you're going to need for marking your cloth. For this activity, it's simpler to keep to three main colours. I've been working with red and black and cream, but you're free to choose whichever colours you like. Please try to select a light tone, a middling tone and a dark one. I prefer to work with natural fabrics as synthetics can be slippy and difficult to handle. You're going to need your plain pale coloured cloth for marking. I've used 2 strips of fabric, each roughly 30 by 90 centimetres. That's about 12 inches by 36 inches, but the actual size is not critical. You can also paint different irregular shapes of cloth, and I frequently use odd shapes from unpicked garments. Samples of cloth that I have here are cotton from an old, no longer used sheet, well-washed calico, which is my sort of go-to fabric. I have some black linen, which was an old pair of trousers, now faded virtue to charcoal. I have some very robust sort of cotton sateen, which was old curtain linings. I have a little scrap of red just in case I need an accent anywhere. And this is an open weave cotton gauze, which I find very useful. It's semi-transparent. It takes print well and is also good to use for backing material if needed. It's strong but not bulky, so it doesn't add weight or thickness to your work. For colouring, I use ordinary acrylic paint diluted with water to a runny single cream sort of consistency. It needs to flow easily and freely. I mix roughly 3 parts of paint with 2 parts of water in a lidded jam jar and shake vigorously. But these proportions will vary depending on the thickness of your paint. I then decant it into small jars so that I can dip my drawing tools in easily. You could use fabric paints if you have them, or any other liquid colour that's suitable for cloth, but do make sure that it's not too thick and gloopy, as we do need to draw freely with it. I've used black and red paints to go with my creamy white cloths, but I've also made a pot of creamy white paint just in case I want to print on part of the black or red areas at a later date. You'll also need 2 jars for water. The shallow tray is very useful. Polystyrene or recycled supermarket plastic trays are fine. Here are some marking tools. I've got sticks of various kinds. I have matchsticks, cocktail sticks, kebab sticks, chopsticks, sticks from the garden. I particularly chose that one because it was split. I chose that because it had a fat knobbly end and I thought that would make good lines. I have a couple of brushes, various circular things to print with, and I have my Flexi Friend here. This could be a store card, an old credit card, whatever you have, as long as it's flexi. I've cut a strip off and I cut little grooves in each end of that piece so that I have a double line if I draw with it. You'll also need masking tape and an old newspaper or similar. These are needed to protect the work surface and to keep the fabric really, really taut whilst you make your marks. Now to the sewing equipment. You'll need a basic sewing kit of needles, pins and scissors. I've selected threads in my 3 colours in a couple of different weights. I have cotton brode and cotton perlé for thicker threads, and I have just ordinary machine threads for thinner threads. But of course I can double those up if I need to. It's a good idea to have several shades of each colour just to add a bit of richness and interest to your stitch work. I enjoy using stranded cottons because they offer such flexibility. The 6 strands offer a range of thicknesses depending on how many you use at one time. Another advantage is the opportunity to actually blend colours by having strands of different colours together in the same needle.
Why not start the hunt for what you need as soon as this video ends? Hopefully you're feeling fired up and excited about the possibilities of Gwen's workshop, so what better time to ride that momentum? By gathering everything you need and maybe even laying out your tools and materials in advance, you're making a powerful commitment to starting your textile adventure when Monday arrives. Look at it this way, if you want to take up running, you set out your trainers the night before, so that the moment you wake up, they're begging to be worn. And if you want to make textile art, put your tools and materials somewhere in plain sight, where they are screaming out to be used at the first opportunity. And that first opportunity is coming next Monday in the textileartist.org Stitch Camp.
Before we wrap up today, a request. Throughout next week, keep an open mind. Maybe you've been taught that stitching needs to be neat and tidy to be worthwhile.
Gwen's suggestions during Stitch Camp are going to challenge you to think a little differently about that. Maybe you've never painted on fabric before.
Wendy Tully had reservations about that part of the process too, but once she started with Gwen's workshop, it inspired her in a whole new direction.
And the more I learn, the more excited I get. It's helped to expose me to using paints, for example. I always thought I'll never be able to use paints. I just don't know what to do with them. And then all of a sudden, I'm buying paints at the art store and I'm painting on fabric and I'm loving it. And then I work it into whatever project comes to me at that point.
One final thing, sharing your journey with a community of like-minded people can be a great motivator for the creative process.
So if you haven't already, why not join our dedicated Facebook group and tell us what you're looking forward to about discovering Gwen's creative process.
Click on the link underneath this video to join the Facebook group now. And don't forget to download the tools and materials list too.
It's time to say goodbye for now, but we can't wait to see you on Monday for the first day of Stitch Camp.
We'll see you